Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Discover new strategies and tactics as Susan Solovic introduced today's top business leaders and entrepreneurs to reveal their stories and insights. Now, the host of the 1% Edge, the small business expert, Susan Solovic.
Hello and welcome to the 1% Edge podcast. I'm Susan Solovic, and the topic of this episode is branding. As a business leader or entrepreneur, I'm sure you understand the importance of branding and positioning yourself in the marketplace. However, you may not truly understand the complexities of branding today. The first step in the 1% Edge process, which I discuss in my book, is the ability to step back from your business and reflect on your strategies. That includes your branding. How many of you know someone who uses a headshot that looks as though it were their high school graduation picture? It happens. In fact, I recently met a business owner whose website and materials I reviewed prior to the meeting, and I almost didn't recognize him. Now, think about your own branding and marketing. When was the last time you updated it? What about your marketing strategies? Are you still stuck in the 80s or the 90s? Market trends are changing rapidly, and it's up to you to keep pace in order to remain relevant to your audience. In other words, it's just as important to be innovative with your marketing as it is with your product and service. Libby Gill is my guest expert today, and she is an expert at helping businesses of all sizes craft branding messages that resonate with their target markets. By the way, if you're a fan of Dr. Phil, she is the branding brain behind the launch of that program. She's the author of 4 books, including Capture the Mindshare and The Market Share Will Follow. And I'm thrilled she's here to share some steps you can take in your business to enhance your branding efforts. Thanks for joining me, Libby.
My pleasure, Susan. Happy to be here.
Now, Libby, many of those listening to us are smaller organizations, and they're going like a million different directions. They're juggling a million different balls in the air. So how important is it for them as a startup or a growth enterprise to really focus on branding in those early stages?
Well, the truth is most people don't think about brands in terms of you've already got one. So it's what other people, how they see you, how they perceive you. So like it or not, you've got a brand. But if you don't control it and manage it yourself, you leave perception to others out there. They get to define you. So I think it's really critically important for everyone to think about, who am I? What are my unique gifts? And is that what's coming across to my, not only my customers and clients, but to my potential prospects?
And does that apply to someone, a business leader or a manager working inside an organization? Do they need branding strategies as well?
They do. And now it's interesting. I started, my whole career was about communications and branding. And then it has shifted more and more over the years into leadership. But the two, is as much as they seem different, they are really inextricably linked, because as a leader, as an internal executive, who you are and what kind of leadership style you have is, in fact, your brand. And again, that's a perception that you can manage and you can create. There's a funny, Jeff Bezos, who founded Amazon, has a great quote that your brand is what people say about you when you leave the room. And there's a lot of truth in that. So you really need to walk your talk, but also demonstrate actively what kind of either intrapreneur or entrepreneur you are.
That's great advice. And I also think for a smaller organization, a lot of times the leader, the founder, they set the tone of the brand. They are personally the brand.
Right. I'm a small business. I've got a very small team, and it's mostly me. Even when I named my company, I thought, I did a whole name search and thought about it. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, I'm starting fresh as a one-person business at the time. I don't want to have a name that I have to explain only to explain who I am anyway. So it became about, what I was building. And now over the time, it's taken on, after 16 years, different meanings. But yes, you absolutely establish it around yourself and the value that you share with others.
Now, I mentioned one of your books talks about capturing the mind share. That's fascinating to me. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's interesting. In the old days, meaning 10 or 20 years ago, the only way we really had to measure consumer habits and customer choice and decision making was by surveys. People would stand outside with their notepad or their clipboard and ask people coming out of a movie or a grocery store their thoughts about brands. But we've become so sophisticated with neuroscience and MRIs and brain scanning equipment that scientists can really peek inside our heads now. And you may think, if somebody asked you that, I'm a Diet Coke fan, but your brain may tell you otherwise. If they look and see that you're activating, your brain is much more activated when you have a Diet Pepsi, they know that, in fact, that's what you prefer. So it's really understanding that people feel first and think second. We think we make these logical, rational decisions, but it starts with emotion. And that's what Capturing the Mindshare is about, really getting into people's hearts before you get into their heads.
I always say that you've got to know what you're really selling. And that goes to that emotion, because all of us have an emotional reaction to almost anything that we're making a purchase about. So that's great. Now, you also, go ahead.
People are buying our energy or our sense of confidence. And they're buying intangibles. And if we don't recognize that that's really the benefit we give, we're losing a big part of the potential that we have.
In my book, Libby, I talk about Build-A-Bear Workshop. Because I like that, because I collect teddy bears. And, the whole process of buying teddy bears is pretty much the same. But when Maxine Clark founded Build-A-Bear Workshop, she realized that she wasn't selling teddy bears. She was selling the experience and making the memories. And I love some of her commercials, the way she really taps into that emotion.
And it's interesting that malls today, if you look at the changes in the big malls, it's been very hard for them to hang on to those big anchor clients with all the changes, particularly of online commerce. But experiences like Build-A-Bear, that's what still brings people in. You can't replicate that by ordering something online, because it truly is that emotional experience.
Right, that's a great point. So you actually have 7 core mindshare methods that you discuss in your book. So what are those? The Reader's Digest version.
The quick version. First is clarity. You've not only clarify your customer, your products, your services, but the clarity of the benefits so that people absolutely get it. The worst thing you can do is confuse anybody. So it's crystal clear picture of what the client's going to get from you. Next is commitment. You've got to commit to your customers and your clients in such a way that they know deep in their gut, it's back to that emotional connection, that you are there 100% for their success, not for yours. Next is collaboration. And we don't always think about that you're in partnership and collaboration with your customer, but you are. It is the sharing experience where you're bringing them not only the product that you've promised or the service, but all sorts of added benefits and knowledge and ideas and this wealth of experience you have. Connect is important. Connection, obviously. And what some businesses forget is that every interaction, every email, every download, every phone call, every voicemail message is an opportunity to further that connection and build that relationship. Then there's competition. You've got to compete, but we don't always look at the invisible competition, things like customer fear, inertia. Of course, we know the competition that's out there, but what's the competition inside your own, that invisible competition? And finally, communicate with such certainty, such clarity, and such confidence that people believe in you, that you immediately build that rapport, which over time turns into trust.
So let's talk about communication for a minute and take that to the internet presence. I was just recently asked to look at somebody's new website, and it just didn't speak to me. She had, first of all, information about herself up there first. Well, who cares, right? That's not why I'm there. And I won't go into any more details, but you say that you have 3 make or break ideas or elements that will absolutely make your website wow. What are those?
Do. And also, Susan, for your listeners and viewers, if they go to the resources page on libbygill.com, I've got a great download for them on exactly the subject. It's the 10 stupid things people do to mess up their websites and how to fix them. But the top 3 are, first is the lack of clarity on your homepage. Just what you cited. If your homepage is all about you and a visitor comes and says, well, where's the me in here? What do you got for me? Gone. Although in some senses, if you don't connect with the homepage, and it's very clear, if somebody comes to my website and says, I'm looking for a financial coach, they're going to leave. And that's fine, because that's not what I do. So it's not that you want to be all things to all people, but you want to make it very clear, here's what I do and here's what's in it for you. Second is the content. People get so worried about the visual, which I think is really important. But if that content does not sing in the same way that the feel of your website does, well, then you've got to be, something's wrong. So sometimes people will pay so much attention to the look and feel, but they forget that it's got to be really great content for them. And finally, it's the credibility factor. If you don't take just a moment on my website, on my homepage, I've got trusted by clients, including, and I've got a little logo wall there of people like Honda and ADP and Microsoft. And it's not a huge statement, but people look at that and say, oh, okay, well, if these guys like her, maybe there's something good for me there. It's that simple. But those are the three. Those are the must-haves, and we could go on from there because there are lots of other elements. But you want people to look and say, "Ooh, there's more here than meets the eye," and go deeper into your website.
You mentioned what's in it for me. I always talk about how marketing strategies have changed. We used to throw the message out there and hope something sticks, right? But now it's more of a two-way conversation. But that WIFM. Marketing 101 for the decades, no matter what platform you're out there with, it's still important to your marketing and branding.
Of course. That's everything. If there's not something there for your customer, there's no sale, there's no business. So it really is thinking about that first. And we've got so many ways to communicate, but that's always, you're absolutely right, Susan. That's got to stay top of mind no matter what the platform is.
So another one of your books is You Unstuck, Mastering the New Rules of Risk Taking. What motivated you, a branding expert, to write that book?
Well, the more I got into coaching after my first entertainment career, and I got more into coaching, and it really started with what people knew me for, the skills of branding, communication, and then it just grew into what people needed, and a lot of that was still the branding, but it was this growth. It was how do I get to the next level? How do I break through? How do I get a little bit more bold? And what really started it was two clients that I had at the same time who had ostensibly the same sort of resources, same education, the same sort of level of expertise. And one was just ready to take off. She just needed a little guidance, and she just went to the stratosphere. And the other one, it was a year-long process to get this woman, and I write about her in You Unstuck, who was an attorney, to really figure out, who am I? What do I have to offer? How do I pick up the phone and call people? And it was really this, how to take risks in a systematic way so that people grew not only their competence about taking bigger and bigger steps, but their confidence level. So it was both an internal and an external drive. And that's what initiated that. And I think that's still my favorite book in terms of getting people to just get past their own issues and get really bold and gutsy.
Sometimes we're our own worst enemies, aren't we? And worst critics by far. So you make a really bold promise in your book, though. You say, if people read the book and they follow your program faithfully and it doesn't work, you will personally coach them. How many takers?
One. I've had a lot of people approach me after reading the book, which is always great. I had one person say, this is not working for me, and here's why. And it was a heart-wrenching story of a woman who had two kids with special needs, one severely special needs, and she wanted to change her career. And she was a tax attorney working at home who wanted to be an energy healer, a huge night and day shift, and she got there. But she needed a little bit of special guidance, and I was so happy that she picked up the phone. We're good friends today, and she's got a different life and different experiences she provides people, and I was just so thrilled that she picked up the phone and took me up on my promise.
That's great. And I know that has to make you feel good, that you feel like you're really helping people. I know when I speak somewhere and someone reads my book and they send me an email or call me and say, wow, you really made an impact on my life. We all have to make money, but I tell you, the psychic income from that is just priceless.
Absolutely invaluable, right?
But so you help a lot of people. What about you personally? I'm going to turn the tables around here. Have you been stuck in your personal or business career? And if so, tell us about it.
Oh, yeah, I would say just about every day. They were stuck with something. But when I was leaving the corporate world and really trying to figure out, I had a great job, head of communications when I left corporate at Universal after having worked at Sony and Turner Broadcasting. And I really had a terrific run, but I felt like I've done this. There's nowhere else to go in my field. I went a little bit sideways and started producing reality shows, and that was great fun for a while. But I really had to look at how did I work so hard to get where I didn't really want to go, and it caused me to look backwards. And the first book I wrote was called Traveling Hopefully, and it was about that process of unraveling the past and looking at not only our own decisions, but the events of our life that become those big turning points. And do we seize them as opportunities to learn from, or do we let them hold us back? And I think there's a Buddhist concept called levels of knowingness. And what we know at one stage, what you know at 20 may be profound, but it's not what you know at 40 or at 60 or at 80. So it was looking at where I was at that moment and saying, how did I decide to get here? Because I really do believe we create our own reality. And how do I now decide to go somewhere else? And it was, I was not in a great marriage. I was overweight. I was stressed out. I was tired of the work I was doing. And I thought, what do I want to do? I want to teach. I want to train. I want to speak. I want to write. And I couldn't fathom that there was a job out there like that. And coaching was a new field. And I thought, okay, that's it. I had no idea how I'd get there, but I thought, that's for me. I'm going to do it. And I just started experimenting, and it'll be 17 years in November that I've been an executive coach.
Wow, that's excellent. Congratulations. What's next? What's next on this path for you?
Well, one thing I've discovered, and I was a kid who grew up with an alcoholic parent, with mental illness in my family. It was not an easy upbringing, although I have a great family, but we had really some serious challenges. So that book helped me unravel that. And along the way, my driving force, I always felt like hope was the jet fuel for the journey of work and life. And as I studied hope, like people study happiness or optimism, I discovered a body of research scientific research from the medical and positive psychology communities. And I've added the depth of that research to my own work. So I'm working on it. So now I speak about hope as the foundation for a positive culture and a leadership style. So now I'm writing a book called Hope is a Strategy, which I'm really happy to bring that idea of how hopefulness can inject our own thinking and our culture into the workplace.
That's great. I actually also read something about you look at all the radicalism that's going on in the world around the globe, and part of the issue is, according to some of the things I've read, is that people have no hope. They have no education. They have no place to go. And so what do they have to lose? It's really sad. So hopefully maybe that'll make an impact around the world, Libby. I hope so. Now, you actually have an offer to tell us about, for everybody who's listening, some sort of a branding quiz on your website.
I do have a branding quiz. It's called yourbrandingquiz.com. So they can go to the homepage of my website, or the resources page on my website, or just put in their browser yourbrandingquiz.com, and it's going to take them through this assessment. It'll take all of about 3 minutes, but then you'll get some good feedback on what's working and what's not in terms of your branding and messaging. So and then everybody gets an excerpt from my book, Capture the Mindshare, when they finish the quiz.
That's great. I always like doing those things. We can always learn. We can always improve. So one last, before we close, one great nugget of advice you give to people who are struggling with getting their branding messages out there.
I look around and get help from other people. Sometimes it's like a surgeon can't operate on, you can't do open heart surgery on yourself. And you really do need some fearless and candid advocates who will tell you not just something to be nice, but tell you the truth. So it's not that you need a cast of thousands weighing in, but ask other people what their opinions are, what they get from your website or your materials, and see what the responses are.
That's wonderful advice. I should heed your advice, because I grew up in the marketing world, in the corporate world, but when it comes to like marketing myself, I suck at it big time. So
everyone does, Susan. I hear that from everybody. I could promote anything but me. And we'll have to get a little better at that.
All right. Well, I know everybody got a lot out of this. And of course, Libby, we will have, for everyone listening, your website, the mybrandingquiz.com will be on there, links to your resource materials, and of course, your books as well. So thank you so much for taking time. I know this was very helpful.
My pleasure. And I said it wrong. You said it right. It is mybrandingquiz.com, not yours.
I was cheating. I was looking at the notes. Anyway, thanks, Libby. And thanks to all of you for joining us for the 1% Edge podcast. This is the podcast where I try to bring you the best of the best so you can be the best. So join us every week so you can get more insight so you can soar to success. I'm Susan Solovic, and this is the 1% Edge podcast.
Thanks for listening to the 1% Edge. If you found these insights and tips helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button on your podcast player and leave a review in iTunes to help others discover the 1% Edge.